and welcome to the Code Clarity podcast. I'm Rina.
And I'm Jean. So we're going to think about not so much looking back on 2025, but looking forward to 2026. But it's always useful to kind of have a little bit of a summary. So in 2025, there was 147 different cases published. GSK had the most complaints against them. And Angelini had the most breaches ruled against them.
Okay, all right. So why do we think GSK got the most, and why do we think the most complaints, and why do we think Angelini got the most breaches?
Well, I think if we look at all of the companies that got lots of complaints, and so that's not necessarily they got breaches, but there was lots of things that were complained about, and that's because they're out there, they're doing things, they're visible, and so people can see what they're doing, so people can then complain about what they're doing. With Angelini, it was just one complaint, but it was loads of breaches, and that was, I guess, it was the complainant was very knowledgeable and was very detailed, provided lots of evidence.
It's a good quality complaint.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving into predictions for 2016. What are your predictions? Two parts to this question. Firstly, for the companies that you think will attract complaints, and also for the areas that will attract complaints that we should really be thinking about targeting.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to play it quite safe here and say similar to 2025. I think those companies that are actually out there doing things visibly will continue to be the ones that attract complaints, because it is easy for anybody to see and to observe what's happening and to then nitpick. So I think it is going to be the larger companies that are still going to be kept busier with complaints. But as I've said, just because you get a complaint doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a breach. So the things I think that all companies can do in order to, if not reduce the number of complaints they get, but certainly reduce the breaches that they're having, is to really focus on those visible things, their websites, their emails, their social media, and make sure that that's really tight, that they do that properly.
And do you think it is a little bit worse then for companies like GSK and AZ, because their global headquarters are in the UK, so they've just got more people in the UK?
Yeah. Okay. Especially when it comes to social media complaints. Yeah. Definitely.
Does explain it.
Okay, and then thinking about sort of broader, Rina, do you predict that there's going to be any major changes in codes or governance for how pharma have to?
I think, it's an interesting question. A few people have asked, will there be a new APPI code in 2026 or potentially in 2027? There could be a number of different reasons why the code has to change. One of them being, if the European code, the FPA code, changes, then of course the UK code must change to reflect the new requirements of that. So until we know more about what's happening with FPA, it's really difficult for us to say, yes, there's going to be a new code. My gut instinct is they may start talking this year, about having a consultation.
Okay.
But I don't think there'll be a new code.
Okay. And then I guess, what about the PMCPA itself? Is there anything that's not necessarily new code, but is there anything that you can see changing with them?
Yeah, I think we've already seen this. So most of our listeners will already know that we harp on about the fact that the PMCPA is in desperate need of modernisation, not just for themselves, just for that the industry actually gets better and more compliant. And one of the things that we've saw in just the last few days is a request from the PMCPA on feedback on their kind of new and improved case reports. Now, the reason we are delighted with this step towards modernisation is that this tells us they recognise that there's a need for the case reports to be simpler and clearer, because obviously if you look at our case numbers, people aren't improving. So there's a huge opportunity here, and we will, on our LinkedIn account, for everybody out there, we will be publishing what our thoughts are. So entirely up to you if you want to adopt those thoughts or have a look at your own thoughts and disagree with us.
Well, what I would say is that everybody, whether you agree or disagree with us, is please do give the PMCPA feedback. I mean, this is so brilliant that they're doing this. Then you're like, it's always nice to get feedback, and so whether that's positive feedback or negative feedback, as long as it's constructive.
Feedback is a gift.
Yeah, but constructive feedback. They're looking to make some changes. They're looking to modernise. So let's encourage them.
Brilliant. That's our predictions for 2026. Thank you.
Bye.